Today's video, we'll be talking about the prices of homes in the USA and the prices of homes in the future as well in the next 10 years. So, the price of homes have gone up a lot since 1971. Back in 1971, you could buy a house for about $25,200. And today, the average price of a home in the United States is about $430,300. The average price. In some states, it could be more, like in California. A house could be as much as $746,000 for average house. In New York City, it could be about $800,000 or whatever. In some other states, it could be less, like maybe $300,000. So it depends. So this is just average. So from 1971 to 2023, the price of the average home in the US went up about 5.56% every year. And from 25,200 to 430,300. So from the last 4 years, from 2019 to 2023, we saw a steep increase in housing prices. So the average housing price in the US in 2019 was about $258,000. That went up to about $430,300 in 2023. So that's an average of 13.65% per year in the past 4 years, which you see in this graph. It went up in this incline, pretty steep incline. I would say about 45 degrees or something like that. And as for California housing prices, this is one of the most expensive real estate throughout the whole country. So average house back in 1971 was about $25,800. The average price of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in California, which is about maybe 1,300 to 1,600 square feet, costs about $746,400. So that's an average increase of 6.685% per year for the last 52 years, from 1971 to 2023. So from the last 4 years, the price of homes in California went up from $659,000. Yes, it was $659,380 in 2019 to $746,400 from 2019 to 2023. That's an average increase of 3.15% per year, as you can see in this graph. It's an incline, but it's not as steep as that, maybe like 35 degrees or something like that. Let's go on to the next chart. In the last 52 years, we're going to look at wages. In California, the average minimum wage was $1.60 in 1971 per hour. Today, it's about $15.50 per hour. In 52 years, the average wage went up 9.69 times. But the average price of a home went up in California, that is. See how much it went up. Let me go back. See how much the average price of a home went up in California. It went up almost 29 times. Yet the wages only went up on average about 9.96 times. obviously the price of real estate went up higher than the wages did. So when the price of real estate goes up, the price of the cost of property tax and homeowners insurance also goes up proportionally. You're taxed about 1% for property tax, 1% to 1.2% per year for a house for housing. If you rent, you're not charged property tax, but the landlord has to pay it, and they make the tenant pay it by reflecting that into the price. So federal minimum wage was $1.60 per hour, 1971, and as of today, it's $7.25 per hour. So it's just flatlined, as you can see in this graph. Federal minimum wage. Some states like Alabama, I guess, some of these red states, minimum wage is $7.25. I guess states like South Carolina and stuff like that, $7.25. Some of the blue states have higher minimum wages like California, New York, and stuff like that. So their wages have gone up a little bit more than, well, it's almost double, actually, the federal minimum wage. So federal minimum wage only went up 4.53 times in the past 52 years. And as for the average price of homes, went up about, let's see how much, almost 17 times. Average price of homes went up 17 times, yet the federal minimum wage only went up 4.5 times. So there's kind of like a discrepancy here, as you can see the difference. So the question is, if property values keep going up at this rate, will you be able to afford to live in your house even if you are retired and have your house paid off? So this is what we're going to try to find out today. So wage projection in the next 10 years, say for some of these states that pay only minimum wage of $7.25, in 10 years, in 2033, they will pay at the current rate $8.65. Who knows? It could go up to $10. I don't know, but at the rate that I calculated, it would go up to $8.65 in relation to the 52-year data that I used. So the average property tax in the United States is $4,303 per year as of 2023. The average homeowner's insurance is about $2,500 a year. So at the average amount of money that the average person is making, would they be able to make enough at the current time? So $6,803. And right now, let's say someone is working 40 hours, a minimum wage job, 52. They probably take only 15%. So they're making this much, taking home this much after taxes, and this is how much their property taxes. So I guess if they have their home paid off, they could stay above water. So right now, that's possible. In California, the property tax is higher because the property values are higher. At $7,460 per year for property tax. Homeowners insurance is higher at $4,500 per year. So that comes out for a total of $11,960 per year. At the current minimum wage at $15.50, someone working 40 hours, 52 weeks. Property tax here is 30% because it's 15% federal, 15% state. The person would take home about $22,568. Still, they're able to pay it. If they have a paid off house, they would be able to covered their expenses there. So at the present, they can do that. But how about in 4 years? This is at the 4-year rate for 10 years. The last 4 years, the interest rate the rate of increase was 13.65% in the past 4 years. If it keeps this current trend, the average house in the United States will go up from $430,300 to $1.546 million. For the past 52-year trend of house increase was at a rate of 5.56% for the past 52 years. In the next 10 years, if we use this data, the price of a home in the United States, the average home, would go up from $430,300 to $739,205 in 2033, right? So the question is, would the average person living in the United States be able to pay their property tax, even if it was paid off? So we're going to look at the federal minimum wage data. In 2033, it'll be $8.65. It could be more. I'm just using this is from the data that I extrapolated at 40 hours, let's say. 52 at 15%. So the cost of home ownership at the last 4-year rate at 13.65%. Even if your home is paid off, you will not be able to pay off your house. You will not be able to cover your basic expenses like homeowners insurance and property tax. So if you're retired, you would have to go back to work if your retirement funds aren't enough. Or you would have to sell the house and leave. And in this case, if it goes up at only 5.56% in the next 10 years, this is how much your total expenses would be. And the amount of money that you make after tax would be enough to cover for your expenses. Just for your property tax and homeowner insurance. So there's other expenses that you need to cover, like utilities, vehicle registration, car insurance, and other things that you need, like internet, and all the other stuff, fuel, etc., etc. So you would only have about $3,607 of disposable income. Who knows? Car insurance is like $150 to $200. Maybe in 10 years, it'll be $300 a month. So I don't think you would have enough money to survive on something like a minimum wage. Now let's compare that to California. So in California, in the next 10 years, in in relation to the historic rise of prices for homes in the last 52 years, the price of a home could go up to $1.425 million in the next 10 years. So your property tax will be about $14,256 per year. Homeowners insurance will be $9,168 per year. So your total expenses for just those two things would be about $1,952 per month. And for here, if this is in relation to, let's say, in the last 4 years data. Last 4 years, rise in housing prices in California was slower than the last 52 years. So if that's the current trend, price of a home in California would be about $1.017 million in 10 years. So you would need about $16,314 per year, or $1,359.50 per month to cover just these two basic expenses. That's not including anything else like utilities, car insurance, or anything else. That's extra, and those things also go up every year as well. Let's see some other stuff. The wages in California went from 15, right now it's 1550, and it's from 160 in 1971. That's 52 years. In 62 years, it would go up 11.55 times from 160. So the average minimum wage would be probably $18.48 in the next 10 years in California. I don't know, it could be higher, but this is what my estimates are. Maybe it could be $28, but we'll go with $18.48. So you work 40 hours a week, average person, 52 hours a year, 52 weeks per year. They would take about 30%. You'd be left with $26,906.88 per year. That would be enough to cover for your expenses, even if it was at the historic high rates. And you would be able to cover your expenses at the lower end, which was for the last 4 years in California. You would have about $10,000 disposable income. Here, you'd have about maybe $3,000, something like that. So minimum wage is just a minimum wage. Some people can make, a lot of people would make over that. Maybe if it's 18, it'd be maybe 25. So that's just minimum wage. So yes, it would be hard, but it would be possible if your home was paid off. However, if you have a mortgage on top of that, it's much more difficult. With the higher interest rates, I think it would be almost impossible to buy a house if you had a mortgage. And if you have a house that's paid off, depending on how much money you make get back in terms of your pensions and Social Security, if it's not enough, then you would have to go back to work when you're a very old person, like, who knows, 80, 75, 80, or 90 years old. You would have to go find a job to make that extra income. Or you would have to sell that place and find a place that's cheaper or something. But there wouldn't really be anything cheaper because property values keep going up. So that's my 2 cents. So the point is, will you be able to afford a house even if it's paid off? If you're working, it's possible. You would have to definitely work more than 40 hours a week. You may have to work, 62 hours, 85 hours or something like that to be comfortable to pay all your expenses. That would have probably become the norm. People would have to work more, but that's assuming that there are that many jobs out there. There is that much work out there, but we really don't know about the future. But if you can find the work, I guess it's fine. If you can't, then you're going to have some problems. So that's what I want to share with you today. And in conclusion, even if your house is paid off, you may not be able to afford to keep it if you can't keep up with the property taxes and the homeowners insurance. Okay, thanks.